to the video, and today we're going to be talking about each energy weapon, as well as how to use each energy weapon, how to use them best, and what attachments you should be running on each energy weapon. So there is only three of them. There's the Devotion, the Havoc, and the L-Star, so we're going to be moving from left to right from these, and then we will be doing the Devotion last. So first thing to note about the Havoc is that it is probably, at this point in the game, arguably the best weapon in the entire game. And I say this because I think someone did an actual test on it and proved that it was the highest DPS weapon in the game, and I think it would capped out around maybe 55. It was either 55 or 50 DPS, and that's crazy. As you guys know, it was like 110 or 100 for a headshot, which is also insane. So the damage on this weapon is literally unrivaled. I promise you guys, if you're sleeping on the Havoc still, you probably should not be. So one thing to note about the Havoc is that it is arguably the most versatile weapon in the game as well. It works very, very well close range. As you can see, the hip fire on it is pretty excellent, so keep that in mind. You don't have to always be aiming in, because the hip fire, due to the high capacity of the ammo, has a high mag count at 32, I think. Yeah, at 32, the mag count is pretty solid, so you can get away with the hip fire, especially close range. Not to mention the accuracy is pretty solid, and like I said before, DPS. It all combines to make this weapon absolutely devastating at close range. So do not be afraid to use this weapon as hip fire close range. If you're in a pinch, you're probably going to win that fight most of the time. So the next thing I want to talk about is the medium to long range aspect of it. Like I said before, it is very, very good medium to long range as well. It's probably the most balanced weapon, or I wouldn't say balanced, probably the most versatile weapon in the game. So as you can see here, with the Bruiser, the 2x Bruiser, it's actually very, very good. This is arguably the best sight you can put on the weapon, and that is because the medium range potential of this weapon and high damage output make this absolutely insane at a decent and medium range. You can shred people like no other weapon could, so the Bruiser is probably the perfect sight you can put on it, but just know that if you're running the Havoc with the Bruiser, I would match it with something like an R9 or Prowler. Whereas if you were using it for more of your close range weapon and you were running a G7, I would say the 1X Classic is probably the better move. Just because it will be your close range weapon and the Bruiser might throw off your aim. It is personal preference, like I said, but I think if you're going to be using it close range, just use the 1X, and if you're going to be using it as your longer range weapon, definitely the Bruiser. It's personal preference for sure, but either one of these sights will definitely be your best option. The long range on it is not bad. I would say, honestly, if you're going very, very long range, just use the attachment on it, because this does do decent damage. The select fire, it's not terrible. It's not the greatest. Honestly, if you're using the Havoc specifically for the select fire, you're probably using it wrong, just because there's so much potential in the actual weapon in terms of the automatic damage that you would just be wasting it if you were using the select fire. But if you have a 2x Bruiser and they're at range, I mean, it's better than just spraying with it, because this weapon can fall off a lot on long range encounters like that, because the bullets just skip around. The recoil control is very hard to control. You just want to kind of stay away from the longest. Like it's not too bad long range. Like I would consider, that pretty long range for an assault rifle, and you can deal with that pretty well. The Havoc is pretty solid with that. As you can see, it does a lot of damage. The accuracy does bounce around a lot, but on a target like that far away, you can still do it, but as you can see, like, you're going to be missing a majority of your shots because it kicks a lot. There's no barrel stabilizer. There's a ton of horizontal recoil, so just be careful of that and keep that in the back of your mind, that the Havoc, of all of its ranges, struggles the most at long to very long range, even though it is rarely used in that aspect. But if you have to use it, if you see a target far away like that, I wouldn't bother using the full auto on it. I would just switch to the select fire and use that. So next up we have the L-Star. The L-Star is not really a good weapon. I know people are going to try to grill me on that in the comments, but guys, I promise you, this season I placed 161 in Apex Predator, and I got that all the way down to, I think, 124. I need to get back grinding. I think I'm around 200 now. But either way, I have never seen this weapon used, even once. Not even one time have I run into a guy mid to late game using an L-Star. And there is a reason for that. This is not a great weapon. But if you guys love the L-Star and you live by the L-Star, I mean, I'll help you out with it. I think that a lot of people have told me in the past that using this weapon with a 3x is actually game-changing. This is a terrible thing to use on it because the gun has too much recoil. So I would say, just like the other one, this weapon can benefit most from the 1x's and maybe even the Bruiser. But I think that this weapon is used best in CQB situations, but not only just close quarter, it has to be extreme close quarter. Like, this would be a substitution for a Peacekeeper, because the gun is very, very good when you're right next to the enemy, and the hip fire, in my opinion, is the best aspect of the gun, because when I aim with it, for some reason, my shots just tend to go through the target. I don't know exactly why that happens, but it feels like my shots just kind of disappear. And that is frustrating, so I just kind of use it for the hip fire, and I think that's where the gun strives, but only close range. So I think if you're using the L-Star late game, you're honestly just making a mistake. I think that there's tons of better weapons in the game to be using, but overall, you know, it's not a bad choice for close quarter. I would say just keep it in that element. I would run, personally, if I had to use this weapon, I'd run the 1x Classic or also the 1x Hollow, because these are obviously decent choices since, like I said before, the close range isn't too bad on the weapon, but I wouldn't even bother aiming with it because the aiming is weird. Like I said, it goes to the targets. Another thing to note about this weapon is the fact that it does, as you can see, it does overheat. So a good way of being able to control that is either listening to the sound effects, because you can hear it will start beeping once you need to stop shooting. And also, if you look on the actual sight, it will turn red on the bottom of the sight. So this is a circle sight. If you look at the bottom by that 387 mag count, you can see a little bar, and once it hits the top and red, that's when you should probably stop shooting before it overheats. It's the same thing with the Classic, except this one's just a little bit different. So once it turns red, I would stop using it. You know, you could use it like that. Just pay attention, because you don't want it to overheat and then have to reload. That would be unfortunate, especially in fight. So that's pretty much all I have to say about the L-Star. I think that it is probably best with these three sights right here, and using it for anything other than extremely close range combat, you are basically just using it wrong and probably throwing, because I could think of 10 other options that are much better than this weapon at medium to long range. Like at least 10. Like at the very least 10. So definitely should not be using this weapon at longer ranges, but it's not bad at close range. So last but not least, we have the Devotion. And one thing to note about the Devotion is that it is a lot like the Havoc in the fact that it is extremely versatile. And what I mean by this is this weapon can be used at all different ranges. It can be used at close range very, very effectively. I think that the best way of using the Devotion at close range would be to hip fire it. I don't think you should be aiming because the magnification on the 2x will mess up your aim. So if you're close range, I'd say even like this far, you know, you can still get away with, I'd probably aim this far, but you can still get away with the hip fire. So don't be afraid to hip fire, because the DPS you'd be putting out in close range encounters with the hip fire is absolutely insane. I promise you, if you're not using this weapon as a hip fire weapon close range, you were probably using it wrong, just because, you know, that 2x might mess you up. And I only mean close range encounters, because if you are, you know, like even this far away, even though that might seem close, you know, you're gonna miss most of your shots. Whereas if you just buckle down, aim down the sight with the Bruiser, you're gonna melt the target. So this gun, like I said before, does very well at medium range as well. So medium range, we'll call it like this, medium range. As you can see here, there's a lot of recoil on it, but that's 200 health in a target gone right there, and boom. So it's really good at medium range. I think it's probably strongest at medium range just because the bruiser is built in on it. So if you catch an enemy like this far away or even that far away, you know, all you have to do is get by the initial recoil, because as you guys can see right here, the initial recoil is very bad. I think it's about after 8 shots, after about 8 bullets. In this one it was a little bit less. So about the 5th bullet it started to become a lot more accurate and a lot less recoil. But as you can see, the first couple shots were very terrible, and that will affect you a lot in medium to long range engagements. So you're going to miss most of your clip until you can stabilize it, and then you'll be almost playing catch up, you know, whereas you're going to miss most of the shots. There is 52 bullets in a mag, but one thing to note about the Devotion is that this is a dangerous weapon to pick up. Now what I mean by this is, if you're using this weapon, you know, say you open a care package mid game going into late game, you have to understand that you are going to run out of ammo with this. This weapon is an absolute ammo hog, and it only comes with 3 mags. So you have to keep it in the back of your mind that you are definitely going to run out of ammo, and you're going to be possibly stuck without a second weapon. And that's not something that you want to put yourself in. So I would say you either have to use it very sparingly and avoid those long range confrontations where those, you know, to even be able to deal a lot of damage to an enemy, you just have to spray them down at long ranges. As you can see, you know, there's a lot of recoil on this weapon, and you really only get to start controlling it around the end of the mag. You know, it can be very difficult, and then you start to be able to control it. So you basically have to waste the whole clip before you could even control it in the long range situations. So you just have to be careful with that. So if you're trying to conserve ammo, I would say definitely avoid using this weapon long range, because you'll just be wasting it. And just be mindful of the ammo in general, because like I said, you know, it has 3 total mags in it, and once that's done, you might be stuck without a weapon. And not having a second weapon can be very bad. I've been in that situation a lot before, where I've either ran out of Kraber ammo or I've ran out of, you know, Devotion ammo, and you're kind of stuck, and it sucks. So you just want to avoid that situation altogether. So if you're going into late game and there's still a lot of time and still a lot of game to be played, I'd say be a little bit more sparing with the ammo, because it can potentially ruin your game. And I'd say pretty much focus on using this weapon, you know, close to medium range mostly, where it strives the most. But if you need to use it long range and you have no problem wasting a little bit of ammo, you know, say you have a second weapon on deck, you guys are set, or there's like a care package nearby, or a loot box where you can, or a death box rather, where you can get another gun. That's the only time I'd say where, like, you know, you just go crazy with it, see if you can get a knock long range, because, you know, the ammo on this is just so precious and gets burned so fast. So one thing I want to show you guys is how much damage it actually does before we go, because as you can see, it does 918 damage, which is enough to melt an entire squad. So the damage is nothing to take lightly, and I promise you, the Devotion melts people. So if you don't like it, just give it a try, because this weapon will destroy anybody, especially close range with the hip fire. Don't be afraid to hip fire. It will beat out any weapon except the Mastiff. So that's pretty much it. That's pretty much all I have for today's video in terms of the energy weapons. Like I said, there wasn't a whole lot. But, you know, either way, that's pretty much the end of the video. So thank you guys for watching, and I will see you next time.